out there and racing. We also saw this morning she's not content with just 100. Richardson's making up for lost time. She's entered in the 200 here with a ridiculous field. So you have Gabby Thomas, bronze in Tokyo in there. You have Dean Asher-Smith, who was hurt, pulled out of the 200 in Tokyo after the 100, but she's back. Prandini, Allyson, Felix in there as well. And so another opportunity to see Richardson here. What do you think of the decision to double?
Well, she's trying to make up for lost time, right? That's what Sha'Carri's doing. She has a lot of energy. She has a lot of races still left in her legs for the 2021 season. And she was running 200 pretty well during the regular season. You see this race. I mean, it was only 22.35. When you look back at, people running 21.6s and 21.8s, it's not as impressive. But it wasn't a headwind, and it was early on in the season. It was back in May. And she showed she could handle that distance. She scratched the 200 at the trials. And, some of us at the time, we thought, okay, maybe she just wasn't prepared to double. Was a scratch because she knew about the pending, the eventual, marijuana ban. I don't know if she knew that yet at that time. So that could have been a reason why she ultimately scratched the 200 at the trials. But we don't know if she ever had the 200 in her mind as like an event that she wanted to star in 2021, if she was kind of saving the 200 for 2022 or 2023. Because she's young, right? It's a lot of times the 1-2 double, you don't always a lot of times you wait till your mid-20s before you start really dabbing into trying to dominate two events. So I'm excited to see Gabby Thomas versus Sha'Carri Richardson, the two Americans. As soon as Thomas ran that 21.6, I actually tweeted at Sha'Carri, and she never got back to me. Let's see if we can find the tweet. Travis, can you find the tweet?
Do you remember?
Find the tweet. I don't remember.
Do you remember when you tweeted to Caster Semenya her strategy for getting onto the Olympic team as well too? It's almost like professional athletes are not reading Gordon Mack's tweets.
I know.
Why is that?
Really,
do you think?
When were the trials? I don't remember when the trials were.
Probably right when you tweeted that. Yeah, I'm guessing right when you tweeted that. You said, "What would you have run in that 200-meter final?" 9:44 p.m. on June 26th. I'm guessing that was right after the race.
Yeah, and she didn't respond. Joel Embiid responded. No, that's different. That's yeah. I wanted her to be like. I want her to retweet it and be like, "I would have won," and then everyone would have been like, "Oh," but I was trying to start shit. It didn't work.
No, don't. Okay, so comment in the chat if you'd like. We got one from Brian here in the chat. I'm looking at the chat this time. I haven't been looking at the chat, but I pulled the chat up this time just because it's a pre-classic preview, so people have a lot of opinions. Brian says, surprised the Jamaicans are racing in Eugene, or in the U.S., excuse me. Neither Shelly-Ann or Elaine run very good in Eugene. You also need to consider this is different timing for Eugene. This is not end of May Eugene. This is end of August. And I know Shelly-Ann in 2019 came to pre and had a bad race, did not run well at all. And then people were saying, "Oh, what's wrong with her?" And then you go back and you look, oh, well, she was kind of just going through the motions there. And then the next thing we knew, she was off and running and goes and wins in Doha and rips off an amazing season. So I'm not surprised they're there because they're both Nike athletes and Nike wants their athletes at pre. But I also think post-Olympics, given everything this year, I think they would have been more likely to say, "Hey, you don't need to go." But keep in mind, this is different timing for the Prefontaine Classic. So I don't necessarily think their past results are going to be an indication of what they're going to be able to put out here. I think if Thompson, I don't expect Thompson to do another 10:61. That was a otherworldly performance, and we need to appreciate that for what it is. But could Fraser Price run faster than she did in Tokyo? Absolutely. I think she could. But think about all the physical toll that the Olympics took, the emotional toll, then coming down, and then now having to finish out the season. We don't know. I think some people are going to be strong, and some people are going to come out a bit flat, and there's no way of knowing. We see a little bit of that post-Olympic trials here too, but Olympics is different because it's everybody in the world, and that's really the big thing. That's really the carrot at the end. So we shall see. We shall see. But I'm excited to see her in both, particularly that women's 100. It's going to be very, 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 very good.
Yeah, I think Sha'Carri has an extreme advantage over the Jamaicans in this race. Not have to come off the Olympics, not have to come off of, traveling to Tokyo, quarantining, doing the whole thing. She gets to just do it in her backyard. She just has a one quick trip, 2-hour flight from California or wherever she's training. I'm not sure where she's training.
Florida. So she's coming
Florida.
that's pretty far. Florida and
Yeah,
Jamaica
but like,
are kind of close to each other.
yeah, but there's a
Relative
difference
to
between
Florida.
you're coming off of your Tokyo trip and back, and
Oh, yeah, I
the
agree.
high and the low, all the media availability. Sha'Carri hasn't talked to anyone. I guess she was doing a music video with with Kanye, so that might have been a little bit of distraction. But there's no rounds. I really do think the race is superly. That's a new word I made up. Advantage to Sha'Carri because she didn't have to do the Olympics and it's not rounds, so more chaos can happen in a one race final. And that's in her hometown, not her hometown. It's in her home country. The Jamaicans, they go get through the visa, do this, that, and the other thing. It's complicated. So I think if Sha'Carri had to go do this race in Jamaica, people will be thinking like, oh, you got to travel to Jamaica. Oh, you got to go through this. You got to do that. Oh, okay, you got to get in a hotel. All this stuff. But Sha'Carri is like, oh, it's just in your backyard in Eugene. So
I think it's less about travel and more about race reps. And is the fact that she hasn't raced since trials going to hamper her more than the other women who are coming off of a big meet at the Olympics, right? We talked about rest versus rust before. And that's the push and pull here that we're going to see in this race. And I'm sure other races, we're going to get results that counter it, because I'm sure in other events, then you're going to see people who, for example, like the women's 8, you're comparing someone like Kate Grace, who didn't run at the Olympics but went to Europe, versus Ajay Wilson, who went to the Olympics but went out in the semis, versus Atheng Mo, who won the gold medal, versus Gemma. There's just there's going to be all these data points throughout these different events. Okay, so let's